Hi, I'm Yeo Min. I'm a pastry chef, the author of Chinese Pastry School, and the co-founder of the Museum of Food. Today we are making egg tarts. Egg tarts are my first love. No one tell my husband this. Yeah, so I've really loved egg tarts since I was little, and I think to be able to master it was quite the moment of achievement when I was testing recipes for my cookbook. And now I teach this recipe to quite a lot of people, including adults and children. And so if they can make it, you can make this too. I'm gonna make the custard first, and usually it's sugar in first, and then water. Just a pinch of salt, balance all the flavors. So now that the sugar is dissolved, I'm going to just add in this evaporated milk. This is optional, but I really like the milky flavor. Just gonna set this aside. And then crack some eggs, because what's an egg tart without eggs? If you have a scale, definitely use one. We're gonna pour in the sugar, water, and evaporated milk that we put together earlier. So just whisk it in slowly because this is still a little bit warm, so you're gonna go slow. We don't want scrambled eggs. This is what we call tempering eggs. Tempering is where you slowly introduce temperatures. So a lot of custard is made like that. You just need to take care of the temperatures because eggs are proteins and they are very sensitive to temperature. I'm just gonna cling wrap it and put it in the fridge for a few hours. The custard has to be cold when we bake it for a few reasons. So egg tarts, right, they are very simple, but that's why they're so complicated. It's two components only, but there are two very different components. If you work with tart dough, quite often you'll find that sometimes when you pour custard into a tart, the tart becomes a bit soggy. And that happens when the tart shell or the custard is warm because there's a lot of starch in the tart dough and that absorbs liquid very quickly. There's so much science to it. If the tart dough is cold but the custard is warm, then when you put the two into the same oven at the same time, the custard is going to cook first and then the tart dough isn't going to be cooked through. Basically, it's a lot of temperature control. I'm the anyhow kind of pastry chef, so I don't believe in like top-notch ingredients. I believe with working with what you have and what you like. Someone asked if we can use duck egg. If you want to try it somewhere else where you can find duck eggs, go ahead. Why not, right? Maybe we can try like quail egg tarts. I don't know. When I make this at home, I don't even use a whisk. I just use my fork. All you need to do is to break the eggs down. Even if you don't break it down fully, it will get mixed in with the water and everything will get filtered. Please don't work so hard. Just break the eggs. I haven't tried that. I think it should be okay. Try it and let me know. Basically for the egg tarts, right, the only thing I caution against is that sometimes people like to reduce sugar in the recipes. And for custards, right, it's basically diluted eggs. So the eggs are diluted with water and sugar, and in my case, evaporated milk. If you want to reduce the sugar, you need to maybe increase the amount of water. I don't know by how much. Go and try. But if you just cut the sugar, right, the egg proteins are not going to be diluted enough. The custard will cook faster than the tart dough. If you have had like your favorite kaya toast with saltpot eggs, right, you'll see that the eggs cooked at around 60-ish degrees Celsius. And then when we bake them in the oven, it's actually above 200 degrees Celsius. The reason why this egg doesn't just curdle and scramble and get fried is because the egg proteins are diluted with water, milk, and sugar. So if you cut any of these, the ratio is going to change. The egg proteins won't be as diluted and then it will cook at a lower temperature. Yes. Art student explaining food science. Let's make the tart dough now. So what we have here is some all-purpose flour, and then I'm gonna put some sugar in, some salt. This is a slight upgrade from my recipe. So a few years back when I was testing this, I used milk powder to increase the butteriness of the whole pastry. When I was making this one day, I forgot to bring milk powder with me. So I was like, what is something that is also high fat and has flavor? So I had some ground almond. This is what I'm using. I realized it's actually a lot nicer than the milk powder version. So this butter has been cubed, and when you are working in a Singaporean kitchen with no aircon, it's quite important to have this chilled so that it doesn't just melt. So this is a shortcrust recipe, and shortcrust means that the gluten strands are kept short because it's very high in fat and very low in liquids. For this particular recipe, I like it quite crunchy and a little bit flaky. What happens here is you see all these little chunks of butter. They are encased in flour, and then bring everything back and rub it. So what this does is it creates many layers of tiny pieces of butter. Now we go in with the liquids. So this is my very precisely measured 12 grams of egg. If you think there isn't enough egg here and there isn't enough liquid, you can add some cold water as well. We're going to rub the dough. So this is called a... Okay, I forgot what it's called. There has a French term for it. See how the texture is changing slowly. You can see how the white specks are being worked into the yellow parts. We just want this to come together as a dough. This now comes together quite nicely. Don't worry if it's crumbly now. Don't be tempted to add more water because that's how you get a short crust dough that is not very short. Your pastry, if it's in a bowl, it should come off cleanly and it shouldn't be sticking to the sides of your bowl. If it's on a table like this, you should be able to clean the table with it. Kind of done. If you want to make more, you can just double the recipe. Don't be tempted to make more egg tarts out of this amount of tart dough. Sometimes we like to push the boundaries, right? Okay, we want like a lot of filling and we want like very thin crust. Egg tart needs to be able to hold up. This is my golden ratio. Tart dough, I think, is the more challenging half of the egg tarts because it takes a lot of practice to be able to shape a nice tart dough. This is the most time-consuming part of making egg tarts, which is shaping the tart shells. The great thing about these is that you can make them ahead. Whenever you want to bake them off for your friends, you just pour the custard in and bake. They'll be super nice and super fresh. I like to use these black colored tart molds because you can see very clearly like where you have like a hole, where it's a little bit thinner. With the silver tart molds, it's a little bit harder to see that, so you can't really patch it up. Practice. My music teacher's coming back to haunt me. Talking about the history of egg tarts, right? So there's many like origin stories. My French friend says that egg tarts come from France. Like, sure. The influence probably came from the British. So when the British, like, they traded through Guangzhou, like at the port in Hong Kong, part of the British Empire, right? Like as a colony. So that's how this whole egg tart culture started over there. Even in Singapore, a lot of the egg tart shops here are actually from that region. The one that I know and I visit quite often is Tong Heng. They actually came from, I think, the Canton region. They still make their egg tarts with lard, so it's quite different from this one that we have here. Okay, it's done. Tastes like egg. Because this is so fresh, the custard part is very puddingy, it's very soft, but the tart shell is very crunchy. If you enjoy the egg flavor, the milky flavor, this is the recipe for you. If you are someone who doesn't really like the eggy sort of flavor, I think something you can try is to add vanilla essence. So if you're still intimidated by this process of making egg tarts from scratch, you can head to my favorite shops. I get my shortcrust egg tarts from Taichung. I really love the egg tarts at Tong Heng. Those are the ones made using lard. If you like this recipe and want to know how to make more Chinese pastries, let me know in the comments.